August 29th, 1997, canonically known in the Terminator universe as the day the world ended, Judgment Day. And it is on this day in 2024 that Netflix has released Terminator Zero, a new series that takes place in the universe and is canonical to the franchise that has come before it so far. In this, however, we switch gears in locations. We go to Japan over here, where a scientist has cooked up something that could threaten the future, and in an attempt to stop it, a Terminator has been sent back, but also someone else who wants to stop the Terminator. And there are a lot of different cogs working in the process in terms of what the future holds for humanity and what exactly is about to take place. And it puts you right in the middle of everything as it's going down on that day, which is something that you have seen a few times with a few other franchises recently, even something like A Quiet Place, Day One, sort of putting you right in that moment in a location which is where mass panic is sort of about to ensue over the literal end of the world and nukes being launched by Skynet. And so that entire scenario in itself makes for a pretty compelling show idea. And that's exactly what they roll with when they're telling this story. And it's also quite compelling because at this point of time, right as everything is about to go right to hell, there's also lots of questions being asked and a lot of different things being considered when it comes to what exactly is about to happen. And those who have the answers to certain things or are looking for the answers to what a future can hold are constantly wrestling with the idea of whether or not something should be done. And much of Terminator Zero is built on those questions. As the events of everything are unfolding and the past and the future are colliding, against each other, there's also questions like that are being asked in the process, which is, what exactly are you trying to save and whether or not it should be saved at all? Because what's the eventual outcome? Does it work out? Is there anything to be gained from this? Or what if every single thing that's about to happen should happen? It's thoughtful questions like this why the first two movies from James Cameron were so effective. In fact, Terminator 2 has a scene where Sarah Connor pretty much tells Miles Dyson exactly that, about how men eventually create everything with the idea of something being great. But then eventually that turns on humanity and it's used for all the wrong reasons. In the case of Terminator Zero, the fact that it raises those questions again puts it a cut above most other entries that have come out since then. In fact, I would say pretty much all of them. Although I haven't seen the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so I can't really comment on that too much. But between Terminator 3, Salvation, Genesis, Dark Fate, those things sometimes get lost in the dust in those movies. In the case of this, that's not over here. And a lot of that has to do with the writing from Mattson Tomlin, who does a really good job of making it a very thoughtful story. And also putting some compelling characters in the middle of everything as it all goes down. With characters like Eiko, who is played by Sonoya Mizuno in the English dub, which I saw the Japanese original dub, so I can't really comment on that. But the character itself was very good. I really liked some of the things that she was wrestling with as everything went on. And being human, she's also someone who, there's not much that she can do when she's going up against these gigantic, machines. There's only so much power that she has. But it makes those scenes a lot more intense, those fight sequences. Similar to Kyle Reese in the original Terminator movie. Landing up in a time where a lot doesn't make sense out the gate. In this mission, she's trying to find Malcolm Lee, a scientist who is cooking up his own invention that could potentially counter everything that's coming, but also doesn't seem to understand what exactly that creation is capable of. And his family is caught in the crossfire because a Terminator that's been sent back from the future to kill him is going to try and use his kids to get to him. And this Terminator is extremely terrifying. That's also something I really liked about this season. It it really manages to bring back the horror aspect of this T-800 just sort of coming after you. It's also gorgeously animated. This is from the same team in Japan that did Ghost in the Shell, and it makes sense that they're the ones tackling Terminator, because so many questions that Ghost in the Shell raises are also elements that Terminator deals with, so the two of them sort of form this, symbiotic relationship. And even in the animation, some things just work perfectly. In fact, there's a couple of points during this which directly reference some of the animated work that they did with Ghost in the Shell, which was really, really cool too. Some of the character animation, but also some of the visuals. You'll have to see what I mean. Like, when you watch the show, you'll know what I mean. Also, the action is really great, and like I said, it honors the franchise quite nicely. The action is also really, really great, extremely violent and gory, a lot of dead bodies by the end of this season, and also honors the franchise that's come before it in really good ways. Obviously, you're expecting a lot of callbacks to the first two Terminator movies, the best ones, but I was surprised by some of the callbacks to even Rise of the Machines, or Salvation, or Genesis, and Dark Fate. There's a lot of those in here. In fact, raising some of the questions that those movies tackle as well, but in a little more compelling way that I think does this series a lot of justice. Even if it gets a little overstuffed at times when telling some of those plot threads, because there are some things that are going on the side with characters, and sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle while trying to deal with the bigger aspects of the show storytelling. That can sometimes be an issue. That is one of the issues that I did personally have while watching this season of Terminator Zero. There were aspects of it that I think could have been tightened a little bit more, especially when it came to some of those subplots, and trying to understand a little bit more about, exactly what the workings of certain things were. And that happens especially with Malcolm Lee's storyline. Because so much is being discussed in that storyline, it's probably the most fascinating part of the entire season. What I really liked about that is, like, all the conversations, some of those things I would have liked a little bit more of, because there's a few scenes that play out in the process that are incredibly interesting and new for the Terminator franchise. I really, really like that stuff. I'm not giving too many spoilers in this review, as you can probably tell. There's not a lot of stuff I'm saying, but once eventually things do start to happen and plans start to backfire in terms of what's going to happen, I was very compelled with where the story went. And despite, like I said, having a few of those issues, by the end of the season, I was very satisfied with Terminator Zero and what it eventually managed to do for the story and for the franchise in general. I think as a whole, this is the best Terminator thing I've seen since 1991. I think they're doing something really, really cool over here, and I'm excited to see what they do next. Not that I've hated those movies, like, for anything, it's just that, sometimes there's a reverence to the original two movies that is there. I mean, T2 is one of my favorite movies of all time, probably my favorite action movie. In fact, there's a poster of it right here above my desk, so, there is love there. But at the same time, I think what those other movies did, there were some fun elements. Like, I liked stuff with Rise of the Machines, some of those things that it was dealing with, some ideas in Salvation and Genesis. Some of those are imbued in here, and they're given some life, and they're given some fascinating reappraisals. And the same thing with Dark Fate as well. So I like the fact that it manages to encapsulate all of those together to make a very well-rounded season of TV, and one that I really, really enjoyed. I don't think it's perfect. I think it definitely has its issues, a few of them, but by the end of it, I was very excited to see season 2, and I'm looking forward to, if they continue to tell the story, where it's gonna go next. I'm gonna give Terminator Zero Season 1 a B+. As a Terminator fan, I'm pretty happy with it. I think they did a really good job, and I have to praise Mattson Tomlin and the team who have put this thing together in the best ways that they have. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon, and remember, the future is not set. There is no fate but what we make for ourselves. There we go.